the issue of Europeans and Africans, or people of European origin and people of African origin, and how I believe they have been pitted against each other for centuries in a way that is very toxic, very harmful, very bad for them and for the earth in general, and backwards, and just very 17th century, and in need of a paradigm shift, if you will, in our time, in the new sort of post COVID world. I think that when you look at what has happened to these millions of civilian workers that I talk about in this book, they were not slaves for 244 years, the extrajudicial incarceration on plantations, the withholding of 100% of their wages for their entire working lives for a cumulative 244 years, even though they had done absolutely nothing wrong, or they had not been adjudicated in a court of law as having done anything wrong. And this was done by their de facto employers, who had the statutory and apparent authority, the condonation, the authorization, the blessings of their governments, very powerful governments that today are the most powerful, most influential governments in the world, the governments that the rest of the world looks to for guidance and for, the example, of what is the right way to be as a human species, as a planet, as a people, and these private de facto employers had the statutory and apparent authority of these governments, who to this day have not attempted in any way to show remorse, to show any degree of accountability, or take any responsibility beyond saying, okay, now that 244 years have gone by and we have done this, we let you go. You're free to leave. And if you don't like it, you can all just move back to where your ancestral grandparents came from, because we're pretty much done with you and we owe you nothing, not even an apology. I have said that I don't believe in apologies just for the sake of apologies. I wouldn't impose on these governments to apologize unless it's authentically their in them, that it comes from them naturally. But I would say that there is a legal and moral obligation, and most importantly, a legal obligation for these governments to go back and revisit, the breach of the duties of care that they owe to these millions of civilian workers, these undefended civilians who had done nothing wrong, who were dwelling in their habitations when they were attacked and trafficked by private parties in spite of laws such as the Magna Carta, such as the Constitution, such as the English Bill of Rights, and others that said that this kind of behavior and conduct is unlawful. That all being said, I thought we should also look beneath all of this to the issue of the color paradigms and the color codes that have been used to not only separate Europeans and Africans for centuries, but literally to dictate how the society, the world society, would be would sort of be be accepted as the norm in the society. You've got these two groups, these two continents, Europe and Africa. And somewhere along the line, someone decided to color code these two continents and to basically define everybody in these two continents as a monolith. So you've got these two monoliths, the European monolith and you have the African monolith. and they color coded them black and white. And I have said repeatedly that most 99% of the people on these two continents are neither black nor white. I mean, not if this is black. If this is black, the vast majority, I would say at least 90%, if not more, of the people coded as black in the world are not black. They're actually brown, right? There's some shade of brown. And the 99% of the people coded as white, if not 100%, are not white. And I never seem to have anything very handy that is white, except maybe for, I have nothing that's white actually. Oh, here's a cup. This is my cup that I made. They were not slaves. But if this is white, then it means that, I mean, I've never seen anybody this color in the world. Yet we have these governments that have agreed to and encouraged and condoned the coding of only these two groups with a color. Two colors that happen conveniently to be considered the opposites of each other on the color spectrum. And this has been going on for centuries. And both groups, both monoliths, accept this as normal and they defend this militarily, even. You've got the blacks who are proud to be black, and they, I mean, even I, who's speaking, I describe myself as black because that's what I've been told that I am. And so I'm a black woman, I'm a black, everything is black before me. So black woman, black American, black, I don't know, just black Catholic, black, I'm not really Catholic, I was Catholic, black lawyer, I'm not really a lawyer, I was a lawyer, everything before me is black. And I say this because that's how I've been indoctrinated, and that's the code that I've been told that I am. And then, so you have all these people proudly black when they're actually not black. And then you have all these people proudly white when they're actually not white. I mean, there are many different complexions, just like any other human beings on the planet. Asians are not all the same color. Hispanics are not all the same color. Africans are not all the same color. Europeans are not all the same color. But the idea is, I feel like somewhere along the line, Africans and Europeans specifically were targeted by somebody somewhere, or maybe a group, a small group of very powerful people, more than likely men, who decided on these codes, and they have stuck, right? We all buy into it. But then when you look beneath all of the problems that we're having in our world today, all of the things that the history that came from all of that, the toxicity that continues to permeate the entire world in one way, shape, or form, you start to ask deeper questions about why are only these two groups required to check a color box on official documents? Why are Asians Asians and Hispanics, but Europeans are white and Africans are black? It's a question that I think is worth exploring, because if the intention with these codes was not completely innocent and pure and good, then it's toxic. And if it's toxic, it's bad, and we shouldn't continue it if we want to have a sort of more healthy world and a more healthy interaction with each other. I mean, if you look at what it has meant, for example, to be white in the world, and especially in these countries that were involved in the dehumanization, despeciation, um, the deprivation of all rights of a certain group of people, you can see that there's a pattern that could be considered at, at best troubling. You have, to be white meant first that you're free, you had liberty, right? You're privileged, right? You're advantaged. you're entitled to wealth and freedom and to live in certain neighborhoods and to go to certain schools. To be treated a certain way by law enforcement. You are, you have certain immunities. You have the right to assemble and to move and to protest. Um, Heck, you can go to the doctor and actually be treated like a human being. And then on the other hand, you're considered beautiful, right? Your hair is good, etc., 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 etc. It goes on and on and on and on. And then on the other side, you have what Black has been considered to be. I mean, these people are automatically disadvantaged. They should go to certain schools. Poverty is normal for them. Um, Law enforcement doesn't have to respect their rights. They have no rights. They have no privileges and immunities. Or if they do, very little or very different sort of from what it meant to be white. Their hair is bad. Um, they're ugly, right? Everything about them is ugly unless those features are on someone who is defined as white. And it goes on and on and on. And it is my view that there's something not right about this. And it's something that I think the governments and the leaders in the society must be willing to take another look at. What are we saying when we code entire groups of people who happen to share certain characteristics, not all, um, by a color? What does the color mean? Why did we so? I mean, what color are Taiwanese people and what color are, you know, Argentinians? And, you know, I just think just use nationality that like you do for all other people on the earth and stop referring to Europeans and Africans by a color. It's unhealthy and it's toxic and there's something weird about it. And frankly, I think it's unconstitutional because it's unequal treatment under the law to require only some people to check a color box and be reduced to a color label and everybody else is, described by their nationality. And frankly, if you even go further, it is rude and you know, it's just impolite to refer to other people by a color. It's absolutely rude to call people red or yellow or things like that, but perfectly fine to refer to people as black and white when they're not black and they're not white. I think it needs to be reexamined at a minimum and stopped at a maximum and refer to people by some other label, like their nationality, if we absolutely insist on labeling people in the first place.